Okay, we are now ready on Soul Food right here on Smooth 98.1, 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. You're listening to Smooth 98.1, and Soul Food is dedicated to talking about your health and wellness, educating you and helping you to see some other sides you have not considered when it concerns your health and wellness. Again, for the umpteenth time, I mentioned that June 19 happens to be the World Sickle Cell Awareness Day. And against that backdrop, we are talking about sickle cell disease. A part of it was discussed on Smooth Health on Thursday. And this morning, we will be focusing on nutrition in sickle cell, but not assuming that everybody understands what sickle cell is and how to prevent it. We will also give that background and some other things about sickle cell before we tell you how best to stay nourished as a person living with sickle cell disease, or maybe how you can advise and be of help to someone who is living with the disease. Remember that the day is not just for the awareness of sickle cell, but also for the ones, the caregivers, the family and friends, so that it can help them live a better quality of life. So that said, you can be a part of the show in different ways. We're currently streaming live on YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth 91 FM Lagos. Again, youtube.com/smooth 91 FM Lagos. And you'll see my face as well as that of my guest who is joining me in all her radiance. You can also come on WhatsApp. It is 0809 That's the WhatsApp line. Or you can ask your questions via the phone line 0144899981. My guest is no stranger to the show. She is a lifestyle medicine practitioner. In fact, you can call her Africa's first digital lifestyle medicine practitioner. She's a doctor and a wellness advocate. She's all about the gospel of prevention rather than cure, because that is less expensive than cure. I am referring to Dr. Chinasa Amadi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here and allowing me to wake you up early to come here. It's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you. All right, so
Thank you.
going right into sickle cell disease, just to give another reminder of what sickle cell disease is and how people get to live with this condition.
So pretty much, sickle cell is a genetic disorder. So it's important to know that it's a genetic disorder that affects red blood cells. So this makes the red blood cells to have a crescent shape, a sickle shape. That's why it's called the sickle cell. Now, the one key way to have it is not like it's an infection or anything. One key way to have it is pretty much when you have a genotype of AS and you get married to, or you have a child or produce an offspring with another partner that has AS. So man AS, woman AS, of course, usually, typically. Man AS, woman SS, that's it. So it's important to know that it's something that is preventable from the onset. So you have to consider the genetic makeup of your partner, especially if you are AS, to consider the genetic makeup of your partner so that you don't stand the risk or the chance of having an offspring that is SS. So pretty much that's it about prevention. It's a genetic disorder. And sadly, there's no cure. So it's something that you think about it. Do you really want to have an offspring that you pass through this, crisis for the rest of their life? That's something to think about.
Thank you very much. So just to maybe reiterate it in a blunt way, what she has said is that everybody who currently is living with the disease is a product of some people's either ignorance or bad decision. That's a brutal way to put it, because this thing is not contagious. It is not infectious. It is purely genetic. So it was handed over to them. And that brings you to why it is very important to discuss this thing and to advise people otherwise, to know that love is not everything and love will not ease that person of their pain. Speaking of pain, just a little overview of what a person that is living with the sickle cell disease typically goes through in terms of their symptoms and their lifestyle, really. How do they live? What the symptoms and the state of their health?
Now, it's important to know that, even though you're living with this condition, you can live optimal life. It's, lifestyle dependent, and different people. I've had some patients that pretty much they before they have any episode of painful crisis, they have these episodes of painful crisis, associated with higher risk of infections, higher risk of inflammations, constipation, the knee, the joint aches, it can be painful. These are episodes of painful crisis. However, I've had some patients that pretty much they go through this crisis maybe once in 3 years, once in 4 years. I've actually met a 65-year-old sickle cell patient, and when she came in, she's like, I know this is about to happen. I'm like, how did you know? She's like, I'm so intentional with how I feel. So the moment she notices, oh, there's this onset of pain, or this onset of, some sort of, maybe she's been coughing for a while, or she's having chest pain, or, she just pretty much shows up at the hospital. So it's important to know that they can live maximally. It's now how, your lifestyle has a lot of role to play. There was a study that was published in one of the behavioral journals, a study that was published, and it said the lifestyle of sickle cell patients can actually influence the outcome and the frequency. Now, it doesn't stop it. It doesn't cure it. It's important to know that. But the frequency of painful crisis, the severity, it can reduce the rates of the severity and the frequency of this painful occurrence.
Thank you. So in other words, having the disease does not equate a life sentence, or a death sentence, rather.
No, but like we always say, it's still better to not have it.
Okay, so Emeka from Ikeja takes us back to the definition and asks a question about what causes genetic disorder. He said, is it a random thing or highly selective? How would you explain it to him?
In this situation, it's pretty much it's a genetic, it's a decision thing. In this situation, it's purely, it's not by one magic chance that, oh, I had AA and you had AA and you somehow had a sickle cell offspring. No, it's not, unless there was error in the readings that told you that, oh, you had AA. I've actually had some people that swore that they were actually both AA. So they were shocked. So we realized that was a lab error, or wherever they did their genetic, profiling, it's their, to check their genotype. It was an error from the lab. So we always recommend that you do 1 or 2 or even 3 places to ensure that if there is a disparity, then it's important you get recommendation from your physician to go to a well-specialized lab to check it out.
That is very important. I believe Henry from Lekki said something like that earlier, that it's important for you to run the test at least once or twice in different labs so that you're not going thinking you're AA. You hear stories of people who said they were AS and they changed to AA and the other way. So just for you to be sure and you're not running on vibes. It's very
well. You don't want to argue with the Nigerians and their the spiritual angle. We're very spiritual beings, and we believe, oh, I was changed from AS to AA. Well, no comments on that.
Maybe you were AA in the first place and it was just the lab results that that was not accurate. So those things are important. And of course, yeah, anything is possible. All right, going back to the quality of life being influenced by or rather, yeah, the quality of life you live as someone with the disease, it is influenced by your lifestyle choices. And before I even go to that, I think it is important to note that Nigeria happens to be number 1 on the list of countries with the burden of sickle cell disease. It is interesting, it is mind-blowing, followed by Cote d'Ivoire, but Nigeria is number 1. So it is something that needs to be talked about, although it has reduced over the years, according to the data, that it's still sketchy. It has reduced over the years. Still, it it tells you that some people are still going ahead with this decision. Now, coming back to it, a person can live an optimum life and not even have a crisis or an episode once in 3 years, until once in 3 years. So what are those things that they need to do to be that healthy and that safe?
Now, it's important to know that, one of the conditions with sickle cell patients is that their body utilizes, they have this hypermetabolism. So their body overutilizes nutrients. Now, it's important to know that there is need for compensation. So when your body, for example, is utilizing a lot of your macronutrients, you eat and your body is hyperutilizing the nutrients, there needs to be consistent compensation. Now, what are you compensating with is important. The key here is nutrient-dense meals. Like I said earlier, that a lot of studies are showing that the impact of nutrition in the outcome and the great severity of this condition. So one thing is nutrient-dense, high-caloric, nutrient-dense meal. Now, what kind of meals are these? These are whole foods. These are foods that are not made in the factory. These are foods that have their component, they're closer to nature. They are higher in nutrient, they are nutrient dense, and they are more nourishing for these patients. So it's important to know that their metabolism rate is different from someone that is not HSS. So, as in that is not does not have the HBSS condition. So it's important that they are compensating adequately with healthy, nutrient-dense meals. Your fruits and vegetables, your nuts and seeds, your legumes, your beans, your lentils, your okpa, your fonio, that's your acha, your millet, your grains. You're having them in their whole forms. You're having your tubers, your nutrient dense, basically. So that should be top of mind, that I need to be eating less processed foods and more whole foods, and even the frequency. This is not the time you say, oh, I'm going to eat just once a day. It's not wise. It's important. Even if you choose to do that, it has to be high caloric and nutrient dense.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to ask a question, you can ask that via WhatsApp 0809-444-0981, and you can call 01-448-9981. Again, 01-448-9981. WhatsApp is 0809-444-0981. You can also join us on YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. My guest is Dr. Chinasa Amadi. She's a lifestyle practitioner, and we are talking about nutrition in sickle cell, especially someone living with the disease. So it's important for you to know it, as well as, if you're a caregiver, it also can come in handy. And I think earlier I mentioned how Nigeria is number one in the global sickle cell disease burden. And I said Cote d'Ivoire happens to be number 2. No, my apologies. It's actually Democratic Republic of Congo, not Cote d'Ivoire. For some reasons, both of them sound the same in my head. Now, going back to it, I was searching what to eat and what not to eat. Focus on whole foods, like she said, nutrient-dense foods. And then you might want to avoid processed foods. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with those lifestyle choices that will help you be better as someone living with the condition. You're listening to Soul Food right here on Smooth 98.1. So it's just some seconds break and we come back.
Your earnings, your spending, your savings. Tune in to Smooth 98.1 for a definitive weekly analysis and check on your income, cash flow, federal taxes. Stay on top of money matters with the experts and make mastery of financial management on the global scale. Wait on your life. Personal finance on Smooth 98.1 every Wednesday from 5:15 p.m. It's all about your finances made easy. Hey, what's up? This is Darity. Stay tuned. Stay locked right here. Smooth 98.1.
It's Soul Food right here on Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life, we love you, your health, wellness. And we are talking about what you should make your food as someone who is living with sickle cell disease. My guest is Dr. Chinasa Amadi, and she has mentioned that you need to stay away from the processed foods and you need to consume more of the whole and the nutrient-dense food. Now, talking about lifestyle choices, there are people who think people living with sickle cell disease are very fragile and they can break as if they are brooms or they are glass. So because of that, they might want to restrict them from some certain kind of exercises and physical activities. Can you shed more light on that? Is there any truth to that? And if it is, what are the kind of exercises or activities they should be involved in?
Well, one thing is certain that it's important to know because they are easily at risk for dehydration. So when they are exercising at this peak, they exercise and they start, the get dehydrated, they could start having it could provoke painful crisis. So it's always counseled that, go just do basic. If you can just walk. You're not going for a competition. It's not Olympic. So, but of course, exercising is important, but it's now what kind of exercise? You can just dance and hydrate while you're dancing. So as you're dancing, you have your bottle of water there and they are drinking up their water. So really, can they break? Typically, they are not breakable. They're not porcelain. So it's important to know that, but it's the key thing is when they're exercising or when they are doing any form of high intensity or active activity, they should hydrate adequately and don't allow themselves to get out of breath. The whole concept of, because of this issue with the red blood cells are pretty much what carries oxygen. So you do not want a situation whereby they are now gasping for air or, they are out of breath. There are certain exercises that you get out of breath very easily. So you really don't want to get to that level. So something basic, walking, I always recommend walking, and that is fine. Walk with your bottle of water. Once you go a little 1 mile or half mile, or 1 kilometer, just drink water, consistently hydrate. That's important when it comes to exercising with sickle cell.
Thank you. We've talked about what they should be eating and not eating. We've talked about what they should be doing physically and not doing physically. What about those kinds of drugs that they should be taking? Not taking now. They probably have an idea of the drugs they should be taking, but those kinds of chemical compounds that might interfere with their makeup or anything that could probably affect the oxygen that is already being rationed, if that is a way to put it. So those drug interaction or drug nutrient interaction that can go on within themselves that they need to be careful of.
Well, in that situation, it's a personalized recommendation. Your doctor will counsel you. That's why one thing, once you find out that your child already has HBSS, that your child is a carrier, it's important to be working with a physician, best to work with a hematologist. So they will make recommendations appropriately based on what medications they are giving you. You understand? Mm-hmm. So once you start that early, so they have that individualized approach for recommendations when it comes to medications. However, as a rule of law, the supplement with folic acid, supplementing with their calcium and vitamin D is very important because most of the time they do not get enough of it from their food. Remember, because of the hyperutilization by their body, and their body, they pretty much need that. So usually they're always on folic acid supplementation, the vitamin D, and calcium. However, if there's any other recommendation, it's important to work with what your physician recommends. So what they give you to take on a regular, it's also dependent on your location, on your socioeconomic status, what you're currently eating. It's all those guide recommendations for individual patients. So that's key to note. So you must be working with a hematologist, not just a physician, but specifically a hematologist.
Thank you so much. I needed you to say that so that another person is aware again and they get the fact that nutrition, health care is individualized. So, as much as there are some general recommendations, but particularly there are some things that are peculiar to you. So, you need to be aware of them and not go against them. You know, there's a possibility that something happens and another person, you might have the same condition, and they tell you this is working for them. And because they care for you, they want to share it with you, but you need to be aware because your body is not theirs. So thank you for that. Now, gradually wrapping up the conversation, let's talk about the possible things. We've talked about the individual. Is there anything that the government or health agencies can do to help reduce this burden of sickle cell disease? Because in 2020, I believe, in 2020, there was a bill that was actually sponsored that passed through second reading. And what was this bill about? It was sponsored by Sam Egu to prevent couples who are both having the AS genotype from getting married. And this scale second reading, although it was not passed because they said it was somehow infringing on rights and it was quoted as right issues. That was one of the reasons that it didn't go forward. But is there anything the government or health agencies or health practitioners can do to help stem the tide of this disease?
So aside from the fact that the Sickle Cell Foundation consistently keep educating the people, I think there's so much more everybody can do. And so it's not just the government. I think religious leaders have a higher role to play than even the government. Religious leaders across board, across different religions. It's important that they are spreading this message because really, before, even before you do a nikai or you do a church wedding, most times you meet your minister, and one thing that they should always request is, hey, I want to see 2 genotype results. If possible, I'm sending you to this place. This is where you're doing it. That way, they have more impact than even the government. Literally, in our own environment currently, the religious leaders will influence more on curbing this tide of progression. Now, education, we can't undermine the place of consistent education in different languages, like what you're doing right now. People are listening all around the world, online, on radio. They are listening and they are learning that, hey, I don't really want to do this. I don't want to have offspring that I'll pass through this painful crisis. I don't want to I don't want to cause pain to my next generation. We are currently educating people, but more education needs to go around, more sensitization on the radio, on the TV, online, on social media. There should be consistent reinforcement of this, the risk that comes with putting love above common sense. That's what I call it, really, because it's love is blind, but love needs to sometimes wear some medicated glasses to be able to see and make the right decisions. So that's really I'll say consistent education. The place of the religious leaders is not is not underestimated. It's paramount. And then what you're currently doing, all the people should consistently, not just waiting for June 19th and the week of June 19th. It should be a consistent reinforcement. And that's key.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's important also to listen. I'm sure the information is coming from one end and the other. Just make sure that you listen because it's very, very important. Not just for you.
Honestly, listening is key because really,
at the end of the day, you make the choice. Do not be from the coconut head generation, if you know what I mean. Please do listen. Thank you very much, Dr. Chinasa, for your time and, of course, all that you have helped us to understand about sickle cell disease. Is there any other addition you would like to add, if any whatsoever? I can't think of anything we've not mentioned today.
I'll just say this situation is best managed by prevention, really. Prevention. It's better to this is a situation of prevention is better than cure, that statement, it's really imperative here that if you're not married, if you're dating someone and you are considering having children with this person, you should start having the genotype conversation early. A lot of people have never checked their genotype. Please, it's important. Check your genotype. And even if, yes, you come out and both of you are AS, or you didn't know and you're deep in the relationship, you've printed wedding cards, abort mission, key. That's very important. And of course, even if you already have offspring with HBSS, early education is key. Start early to teach them to manage this condition. I told you, I've seen someone that's 65. So it's possible to live maximally with this condition and reduce frequency. It's not a cure, but starting early to teach them to take their supplements, to not over-exercise, to not eat a lot of processed foods, teaching them from the beginning, it's a game changer. So
Thank you.
Yeah, prevention and early education is paramount.
Maybe when gene editing technology becomes so accessible to everyone, they can go ahead with the careless choices. Maybe. But till then,
they're not checking their blood pressure to do gene. They are not.
Just maybe. But till then, please, you have to make these responsible choices. But for what it is worth, I think if there is anything that comes with the advantage of being a carrier AS, it is that you will be at least immune to an extent from malaria, because according to the science, it shows that you have some level of protection against the malaria parasites. So that's
I like your emphasis on some level of protection. If you like, go and sleep outside.
Well, yeah, so that is something to be happy about if you are an AS.
Well,
yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Dr. Chinasa. If people want to check out what you're up to and, of course, catch up with you on social media, how can they do that?
So you could always find me on Ariella Health and Fitness. That's Ariella is ARIELLA, Health and Fitness. And also you can always send me an email, Dr. Chinasa at ariellahhealthandfitness.com. Website is www.ariellahhealthandfitness.com. And my number is 0902271351. Thank you so much.
Like music. Thank you so much, Dr. Chinasa. A pleasure as always. Do enjoy the rest of your morning.
You
Bye.
Too. Bye.
All right, Lagos, Nigeria, and world. I hope you've had a good time listening, getting educated, and most importantly, you will put those things to use, please, because those things we share for you are not just for the sake of having a program, but it is because we care about you and, of course, everyone around you. So please do take heed and educate someone too. You can now tell them something that you have heard, and if you'd like to confirm, it's okay for you to ask a medical practitioner. So please, please, and please, for the last time, do take heed. In about 10 minutes, I will be joined by the children. There is a last chance for them to earn themselves a place in the studio next week. So we will be taking the spellings from 8:40 on Curious Minds. But there are rules, and the first is that they need to be between the age of 6 to 15. At that time, I will be taking the calls from them. Well, for now, enjoy some music. And when I say enjoy some music, they are music for children. This is Smooth 98.1.
And the rest will follow.
Thank you for streaming and watching. Bye.